Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, the channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and today we're looking at the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion for the Marvel Champions living card game. Okay, so I'm not going to go over every single card, every single, little facet of the box. I'm just going to kind of give you the broad strokes of how I felt about the box in general. We're going to talk about the three main things, which are the heroes, the villains / scenarios, and then we'll touch on the campaign briefly. I've got these sleeved up, but I took the clear sleeves off of these two just to cut down the glare a little bit. Nick Fury and Maria Hill are the two that come in the box. Great little pairing here. And they play very, very differently. One nice thing, not to get too involved in the campaign talk yet, but Maria Hill, not very complex, and Nick Fury, really pretty complex. So just out of the gate, these heroes in this box, pretty interesting because if you are an experienced player and maybe an inexperienced player, Nick Fury, it'd be good for the experienced player, and Maria Hill maybe for a less experienced player if you wanted to kind of jump into the game. He comes with a Justice deck, and she comes with a Leadership deck. So let's talk about Maria Hill first. She's a little simpler, so maybe we'll tackle her first. Maria Hill basically, thematically, is a home run. She is able to take the some helicarrier supports in her deck that are sort of off aspect, and when you're using her, you're going to be using her alter ego ability. You're essentially going to stay in alter ego probably the whole game, if not if not most of the game, because you want to get a hand size of 6. Because most of the shield supports that you're going to want to be playing are going to be 6 costed, and they're very, very powerful. So often what you'll do is you will use her, you'll exhaust her to look for a shield support in your deck, and then you'll spend the rest of your hand, which is 6 cards, playing it. So let's take a quick look at the major helicarriers. Okay, so she comes with the Iliad, and again, you can see that all cost 6, and there's one for each aspect. So she comes with this one, which is very versatile. They only come in with a few counters. So this has 3, 3, 3, 2, and 2. The Iliad is pretty versatile. You can use it, deal 5 damage to an enemy, remove 4 threat from a scheme, or heal 3 damage from your identity. So often if you want to stay in alter ego, you'll play the Iliad to kind of get rid of clear the threat off the main scheme. Also, you can deal damage to retaliating enemies, etc., that maybe you don't want to attack. So it's very, very useful because of its versatility. Then we get the Bellerophon, which deals 3 damage to the villain in each mini engaged with you, and it also takes the tufts off. It basically acts as a pierce. And then the Douglas removes 2 threat from each scheme, ignoring the crisis icon. The Circe drops any player can add an ally from their hand into play, so you can use it as a support role, or you can make a build that you just have bonkersly good allies that you're just pumping out. And then the Pericles, which is kind of borderline broken. Sorry, that's a little hard to see there. The Pericles reads, exhaust the Pericles and remove a supply counter from it. Give a hero or villain a tough status card of your choice, and then give an ally or minion a status card of your choice. So you can confuse or stun the villain, and then you can go ahead and give yourself or one of your allies tough, so they can block on a future turn, or they can get a free activation. Somebody like Havoc, or some character that may take more damage than, or an enraged type of character, that's getting extra consequential damage. But I mean, this is bonkers. Now if it's the villainous stalwart, you just give yourself a tough. So I mean, this can essentially, if you get this out in the first turn, which is usually what most people probably will do, you've locked the villain for the game. Now her other side, she can all allies gain the shield trait, which is pretty cool for some builds like that, and then you can move counters around. So in her deck, she comes with a command team, command team. And that's a shield support, so essentially you can just move counters from that to these guys and keep them fed. That'll go away, and then you'll just be able to replay them. Some other quick cards of note here is All Points Bulletin. Very, very powerful. Once you get like 5 or 6 of these supports out, for each support you control, you'll remove damage from a scheme or remove a threat from a scheme or deal damage to an enemy. Super, super versatile. An incredible card there. Then there's a couple cards that can ready or add tokens to things. Special funding allows you to, when you pay for one of these helicarriers, add an extra token onto it. Shield Director, all you do is put a token on something. And then she also comes with the Agents of Shield, team card here where you're able to cancel treacheries. And then just for fun, there's an amazing card here, really, really super fun. The Hard Call. You essentially discard one of the shield supports and deal X damage to every single enemy where X is the permanent cost of the discarded support. So you're kind of crashing the one of your helicarriers into the enemy and all the enemies. So that's a hard call because you kill everybody on board, but super, super fun and interesting kind of card. Just for the fun factor alone, it wins. Now let's take a look at Nick Fury. He comes with this stealth form and assault suit, and when you are in your hero form, if you make an attack, you have to pop out of stealth and go into the assault. And when you're in stealth form, enemies can't attack you, so they will scheme instead. And as long as you have 5 or less threat on this card, one of these threat from their schemes will be popped onto this. And then when you go to attack, you can spend the threat on here to add to your attack. So if you have a card that deals 3 damage to each enemy, or it deals 3 damage and 3 damage, much like Gambit or other characters like that, you're going to add a damage for every threat you remove in addition to that. And then also when you're attacking, you'll add threat to this suit with a variety of his cards, as well as whenever you thwart, you'll do that. So kind of like a lot of his turns might look like you're going to thwart, add some threat here, and then use it to spend on some of your various effects. When you're ready, you'll go into assault form and attack. However, this is a very risky kind of character to play because they're scheming constantly. The villains and enemies are scheming constantly. So an ill-timed advance or something might just lose you the game. So it's a real, juggling act here. Similarly to Maria Hill. Maria Hill is also a little bit of a juggling act in a way because, she's very, very weak in the beginning, but then once she builds up, she becomes basically unstoppable. So she's very susceptible in that early game, and Nick Fury kind of has a little Achilles heel as well, where he can get schemed out on quite easily. So Nick Fury, always the super spy, always ready and prepared for everything, so he's got a lot of preparations and stuff. He has a lot of ways to spend this sort of secondary, economy he has. Fury's flying car, you remove threat and you can ready him off of your suit, so that's kind of cool. And then his wristwatch, remove threat, gain some resources, so there's that as well. You can spend threat on this preparation to cancel a treachery as well, so that's kind of cool. Practice plan is not in his deck, but it's a neutral card that comes with him, so you can, once you use a preparation, you'll bring it back to your hand. Then his title card, this secret agent card here, allows you to move a threat from the scheme to your suit. And that's kind of a way to feed your economy as well, and also to keep some threat off the scheme to keep you alive. Eye patch camera is going to prevent threat from going on a scheme, much like that. I can't remember the name of the card now. It's a Justice card, good for Black Widow. That does the same thing. It's got his art on it. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. So EM's Shield is kind of the same thing, but for damage, you'll remove a threat and keep yourself from getting damaged. And then he comes with some attack cards, deal 3 damage to the villain in each player, minion, So, that's one if you add, any of your threat, up to 3 of the threat, you could be doing 6 damage to everything in play as well. And then there's cards like Concentrated Fire and his thwarting card, which, you can defeat enemies and kind of switch back to stealth form or put the threat on your suit. So he's got some interesting stuff there. So all in all, very, very interesting. Nick Fury, I think, is going to have some really cool builds aside from his precon, because he's just got a lot of interesting things going on. Like I said, he's not the most powerful hero because it's very risky to let the villain and the minions scheme all the time. His precon doesn't really jive with him though, because you're adding some confusions and stuff on the minions, so it's kind of working against what you want to do a little bit. But that practice plan and stuff, I think, is a really kind of a cool card to replay. A lot of those really good cards that he has. Maria Hill, again, very slow to build up, but once she's built, she's very, very powerful. She also has that kind of secondary economy with moving all the tokens around. You may want to flip up to Hero, move some tokens. You haven't been attacked really all game, so you can probably take a hit, maybe even 2 hits, before you flip back down and never attack anything ever again. Now, the other nice thing is that she gets statuses like stunned or confused. You don't really care because none of the helicarriers are doing attacks or thwarting. They're just removing and dealing damage. So that's another nice thing about that. Now we're going to go through the villains pretty quickly. I'm just going to give an overall vibe of each one, but I do want to give kind of an overview thought firstly, and that is the fact that so I'm a huge Lord of the Rings player. There's a lot of crossover with these sister games of Arkham Horror Marvel Champions and Lord of the Rings. And at some point, you play enough of these games and you enjoy them, but they become a little bit samey, you know, not in a bad way, I guess, but, you know, you've played them or whatever. And once you get, you know, 6, 7, 8 expansions in, you kind of want to maybe have something a little bit different. And this expansion, I think, for the villains really did that. Now, Lord of the Rings kind of had the Dream Chaser cycle, which came and it really revolutionized things, but you never want to start there. And I think this whole box has some really fascinating little villain parts to it. Just to change up the way that things are played a bit, and they feel really kind of different and refreshing in a way, so I felt like it was a bit of a breath of fresh air. I will also say that, spoiler alert, they don't tell you who the last villain in the box is. It seems a bit weird. I mean, it goes with the theme, but it's kind of obvious if you know comic books, and also they don't really deliver much of a punch for it, so if you don't want to know who the last villain is, I'll give you another warning before I show him, and then you can kind of skip ahead from there. First up is the Black Widow. This is the Alina Bulovich version, but she mirrors the hero quite a bit. She has a forced response. When she's attacked, you will remove a threat from the main scheme. Now, if you've got no threat on there, she will not do this. So if you can keep the main scheme clear, you'll be able to just attack her with no repercussions. But what'll happen is if you'll discard the top card of the encounter deck, and if it has a preparation, you'll essentially have to deal with that. So this is preparation. After this attack, put this minion into play, engage with you. That's a preparation. So there's a whole load of these. Put this minion into play with you. Preparation, deal damage to each character you control. So you're getting those as like sort of extra encounter cards or effects just by attacking her. And that's a lot of what her kit is about. She has like a lot of Dance of Death. That's like a Black Widow card. You've got these aim soldiers and things, but that's just the modular here. Widow's Bite, stunned 2 damage. There's one in your there's one that's similar to that adds Confuse, but you know, really and truly, she's got some attachments and stuff that add beef her up some, etc. But essentially, it really attacks rush decks. It makes it very difficult to attack her straight away. You got to make sure you strip away that the threat off the main scheme before you attack her, but because there's a lot of really, really punishing effects for her. But she's really interesting because you can't just straight up attack her. She feels very unique to me, so I do think that she's quite a bit of fun. Okay, so Batroc, very, very interesting. He's the second villain here. Very unique. He has this alert level, okay, which kind of is like, this is a stealth scenario. So you have 2 different kinds of alert level, low and high. So what's going to raise this level, and of course you can lose if this gets too high. You're trying to sneak in, that's the whole point. Whenever he attacks you, you're going to add threat here. Whenever anyone, minion or ally is defeated, you're going to add threat here. You know, people see bodies laying around, you're fighting a lot, you're causing commotion, that's going to like raise some eyebrows, and the alert level, you don't want the alarm, you don't want that going off. So when he attacks you and stuff, as I say, that'll do that. Now when you defeat him, you just kind of keep beating him, right? You don't have to fight him, but you can. But when you do, you're going to be removing threat from here. This is a very unique scenario. There's only 1 or 2 others that do this, but you're going to your goal is the opposite of normal. You win by advancing here. You win by going through this deck, but you're going to be removing threat from here. And when you do, you're going to get to go to the next stage and the next stage, and then you're going to win at that point. But you need to rescue these captives first. So there's these captives. They're allies. They don't count against your ally limit. They do, however, mess with your team cards, unfortunately. But you can exhaust them without damaging them, and they'll be able to remove threat from the main scheme, so they'll kind of help you. But the more captives you have, easier it is to get out, and you have to have some to get out. So there's just all kinds of cards like security cameras and a bunch of aim guards and things like that kind of make things very, very interesting. So, but this scenario also kind of brings in this whole idea of vulnerable. There's these vulnerable characters here, and essentially what that means is if you stun or confuse them, you can discard them. You don't defeat them, and then that doesn't heighten the alert level. So this scenario plays completely differently, than anything else. You can spend resources to remove stuff here, but it's just so cool because you're kind of like, you're knocking them out and putting them somewhere like, solid snake style or something to get into this base. So I really like that. It feels quite different. If you have those kind of status effects and things in your deck, you can really move through this pretty interestingly. So I just liked it because it just felt a little bit fresh and different. Then we got the silliest villain in all of Marvel Champions, or rather all of Marvel. his scenario, MODOK here, has a really interesting scenario as well. It all kind of revolves around these adaptoid enemies, okay? So they're 1/1s with 5 health, not that big of a deal. And you get a little reward I'll talk about in a second when you defeat them. But it all revolves around these upgrades: Psionic upgrade, Flying upgrade, Strong upgrade, Sarah Garza upgrade. So, and they're going to kind of beef them up, give them more attack, give them more scheme, you know, give them attack and range, overkill, and villainous. That's really bad. So these minions are going to be getting stronger and stronger. And the way that these are going to come out, you're going to start with I think one in regular, 2 in the expert mode. But when the main scheme would be defeated, you're going to add another one of these out, strengthening the adaptoids. MODOK, this is sort of like Zola's scenario from the Red Skull box. He's sort of experimenting on these adaptoids and making them stronger. So they're getting, the villain is kind of getting that leverage over on you, quite the opposite of what you'd like to be happening. So, but if all of them are out and this goes to, you know, the threat level reaches the limit, you'll lose much in the way that you would normally. Now, you're going to be, MODOK is very similar to Batroc, because he is, you know, he's not that beefy in his stats, okay, but he does get built up with these. He's got a lot of upgrades that come out. And you're going to be trying to defeat him, because when you do, that's going to allow you to open these holding cells. And the holding cells, each of them has an Inhuman on the other side of it. And when you defeat him, you get to remove 2 lock counters from these, and there's 2 per player on here. You can also spend resources to do it. And then you're going to get a hold of one of these allies, and the idea is that you're going to get through all of them, get all of them on your side, and they're all very powerful. They've all got some really interesting abilities. One of them is much better than the others in a way, because he helps you to unlock these, and that makes you move faster. So it's a little bit luck dependent, I think, on the order that you get these. But yeah, he's going to get these upgrades, which is going to make him harder to knock out. And when you do knock him out, you get to wipe all these off of him, and then you'll get to get rid of some of these locks. So once you've freed all the captives, and then you'll beat him, and you'll be able to you know, then that'll win the scenario for you. So it's just a bit of a different thing. You can choose to just spend your resources to get these guys. You can just keep punching MODOK over and over and over again to, you know, to get these guys. And it's, you know, it's just feels a little bit fresher, a little more interesting, because I think there's different avenues that you can go into to defeat them. Now, if you don't get a lot of adaptoids, you know, this scenario also can maybe be a little more swingy, I think, than others. I really love the idea of the whole mad scientist thing. I love the Zola scenario. I like, you know, all the AIM lackeys and things in these sets as well. So yeah, I really think this is a pretty fun scenario. It can have a little bit of a swing to it, but it's not so punishingly hard. It's pretty easy, I think. So it's just kind of a lot of fun to me. Next up, we have Citizen V. This is the sort of leader of the Thunderbolts in disguise. And what's really fascinating about this one is you kind of like, this boss is nothing, you know, and but you're not really fighting him. He's healing every turn when you know, when you're busy with his minions, but these big minions come in, and there's tons of these, and there's going to be more coming out in the packs that are in this cycle, but they're elites. You know, Black Widow, you have Mark 5, Batroc, you know, I mean, they got like 16 hit points, 14 hit points, and you're going to choose 2. So on a solo game, you'll have 2, and they're going to kind of go in this Thunderbolts backup, and they're going to swap each round. Like, you know, so at the end of the round, they're going to swap, heal up a little bit, and they're kind of like, one's hitting you, going back, hitting another one's hitting you, etc. So there's just a bunch of these, and again, there's more coming in the other waves. So it's kind of neat. Like, it's just an interesting thing, because you got a lot of different enemies to fight, and they're really big, chunky enemies. So it's an interesting take on like Mansion Attack, and it's an interesting take on like Sinister Six. We have these really big, bulky minions with their own like encounter sets in there, which is pretty awesome. And then when you kind of knock them out, then you can knock out Citizen V. So a really, really interesting scenario, and always going to be different. And again, there's more villains coming out all the time that you can use either as, you know, mod sets in other scenarios, or, you know, you can switch them out and always make this scenario fresh and interesting. Okay, final warning here for the spoiler here. Okay, so the last villain in the box is Baron Zemo. Leader of the Thunderbolts in the comics. Makes a lot of sense. I don't know why they hit it, maybe just to keep that theme running strong. Now, this is a hard villain to talk about because he's so tied into the campaign. Now, I'll talk about the campaign in a moment, but you know, he is a capstone for that, and it really makes sense, and it's thematically very, very cool. However, it's a kind of a weird villain, because I don't think you would play this. I think it'd be kind of tricky, or not nearly as satisfying to play this without kind of playing the campaign and having kept track of the story of the campaign, there's some additional setup and stuff. So it feels a little strange to play him without that. However, I'm going to make some big, bold statements here. There's some of the most thematically interesting cards I've ever seen, and there were a couple cards in the set where I'm like, whoa, I'm going to do that. And I think I'm going to keep that aside. I'm not going to spoil those. I think you should play this villain as part of the last scenario because there's some really wild cards in here. There's some cool like choice cards. He's one of the most compelling, interesting villains, I think, in the whole game. However, that does come with this significant drawback that I feel like he really isn't a villain I would ever really pull out and play, probably because of the additional setup and the quirkiness of him, because he goes so well with these sort of classified folders, these secrets. He's tied into that kind of thing, which is part of the campaign, so it's a little bit strange. But there's some moments with him in his card set, I think, that are like shockingly amazing and really I felt were very exciting to play. So hopefully that wasn't too disappointing, not going through all of the Zemo stuff, but I think you'll really enjoy kind of some of those surprises in there. Very, very cool. But the campaign is part of what makes this box so unique and kind of refreshing in a way. Some new ideas. They're nothing too crazy, but I think it really kind of adds something. And especially for the theme, which is a shield kind of thing, and there's spies and espionage and moles and double crossing and stuff like that. So it really revolves around these two concepts. So number one, there's a mole, and you're trying to figure out who they are, who the enemy is that's feeding intel. And you have all these cards here, and you're going to put one of each type, okay, one of each color. So if you can see the difference in colors there, you're going to, without looking, you're going to take them and put them into an envelope, and that's going to be the identity of the mole. And then over the course of the game, you're going to be able to get these secrets. You're going to be awarded by these kind of things, and you're going to cross off of this sheet, and that's going to eventually, if you get them all, it's kind of like Clue, where you'll know who the mole is based on this, and you're going to make an accusation. That's kind of a whole part of that. That's kind of part of Zemo's thing as well. So you're going to, you can have these cards aside from the campaign for Zemo, but which is what I was saying was kind of clunky, but you're going to be able to have an opportunity to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, and over the course, or 4 of them over the course of the campaign, something like that. But you'll be able to get the last couple, in the Zemo scenario. So the way that you get them is that you're going to be spending resources to remove secrets from here. So you're kind of digging out these secrets, and you're getting some information on these guys or gals, and then you're going to be if they have too many secrets on them, they're going to flip over. Now, if you spend the resources, you'll get to do like a little extra benefit, like healing, dealing damage, or removing threat. But these cards will become, they'll attach to the villain like they're mad at you for this happening, and they'll permanently attach to the villain. So the villain will have forced responses and extra scheming and attacking. So really, really bad, really punishing. Now, one thing I will say about this here, which is very frustrating, is that normally you can print these kind of things off from Fantasy Flight's website, but they don't have that. And so, I tried kind of putting counters on this or something to kind of cover them up, but you don't want to write on this. So it's kind of like, you want to be able to reuse this. So I really wish they'd given you either some pad or some extra copies or something, or been able to print it off the website like all of the other, box sets do for most of their games. So a little bit frustrating. Yeah, but so for this kind of campaign, the theme of the box, I think this kind of Clue-ish deductive thing that they kind of put on. In addition, it has a real gameplay element because as you're playing through the campaign, you're continually worried about, keeping secrets off of them. And if at least one of them is empty at the end of the scenario, you get another card and you get more information. And so that makes the final scenario, much easier to do, to root out that mole. So it doesn't like crazily change the game in any way, but I think it does add something quite interesting and different, really. So this box feels very unique compared to the other boxes. Okay, so that kind of wraps it up. Super fun box. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the differences in the villains and things were pretty fresh. I love the sneaking around. I like the vulnerable keyword. Think that's awesome. The heroes are super fun, thematic and fun. One of them very tricky, one of them more straightforward, but I do kind of feel like they're both enjoyable to play together. One thing I didn't mention about the campaign is not, bone-crushingly hard like some of the other ones are. I actually took the precons through and was able to win without a loss, although on the 4th and 5th scenarios, I did get a little dicey there. So yeah, a lot of variety in the box, super fun villains and stuff like that. So this is one of my favorite expansions so far. So hopefully that helps you, decide whether or not this is for you. But for now, I gotta roll.